On this edition of the program, the Texas Democratic Senate primary beef is bigger in Texas. Susan Collins is in Maine. We are almost assuredly headed for a shutdown as talks stall with DHS. And Tom Merritt joins us to talk about the biggest issue that we are not yet talking about that could define the midterms and the 2028 presidency, AI. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for February 11th, 2026. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here in Austin, Texas. Got a big show for you. Oh boy. I mean, there are times where I enjoy doing this show a lot. And then there are times where I hate doing this show. And hopefully my professionalism is able to shine through and get you a good product, even when I don't enjoy the materials I have to work with. That is my talent as a professional, is to take subpar material and make it into something for which you enjoy. And sometimes my job is easy because I love what I'm doing. And boy, do I love what I'm doing. We've got ads, we've got announcements, we've got opposition research, we've got stakes, we've got fates rising and falling. Oh boy, good times. And a conversation with one of my favorite people on the planet, Tom Merritt of the Daily Tech News Show. He is going to talk to us about AI. I'm obviously very entrenched in the world of artificial intelligence, and I have seen it poke its head in different ways on different sides of the aisle, as there does seem to be a coming change in our economy. Right now, we are at a moment of heightened economic anxiety. Is AI going to be beneficial enough for the general person? We will see. We'll talk about it. We are going to talk about Susan Collins, and we're going to talk about DHS funding and whether or not that's going to happen. It's all coming up. We're going to begin here, though. And that is an ad by Jasmine Crockett.
The system is broken. Our communities are being terrorized. People are hurting. But Texas has a warrior who's fighting back. A champion for us, our votes, our rights. It drives the president crazy. So they tried to draw her out of Congress because they thought it would take away our power. They were wrong.
I'm Jasmine Crockett, and I approve this message.
If you are only listening to this program, then I need to describe that what you just heard was an anime-themed advertisement for Jasmine Crockett in the state of Texas, running in the Democratic primary. It features what looks to be some AI animation. It's certainly inventive. It certainly cuts through the noise. It is very much in the vein of, Meg the Stallion, Houston native, also a big anime fan. There is a gigantic crossover with the Black community in anime. That is something that is well known throughout pop culture. I don't know. I mean, to be totally honest, it might actually be brilliant. If you're looking at high propensity Black voters in the primary for Texas, how many of them are really into anime? Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's speaking to a demographic. The reason why I play that is because that is currently up on television throughout the Lone Star State. And it's pretty late in the game for Jasmine Crockett to be putting stuff up on television. This comes after a notice report that says people don't know who's running her campaign. She's been outspent 19-1 on television. And her fundraising, thought to be the reason why she'd get into this race, hasn't really shown up. The report essentially paints the picture of kind of a shambling mound, just tittering and tottering hither and yon without any real kind of strategy. There has been a lot of strong words, but not a whole lot of X's and O's. This, of course, comes as she has heightened her contrast point with James Tallarico, thought to be somebody that was a bit of a golden boy in Texas, a preacher from the Austin area that might be able to bridge the gap, be enough of a he's fine to keep Republican voters asleep while they put forward a controversial nominee in Ken Paxton. This, of course, hit a big inflection point a few weeks ago when Colin Allred responded to a influencer saying that James Tallarico, in a private conversation with the influencer, called Colin Allred a mediocre black man. Well, Colin Allred not only endorsed Jasmine Crockett in that video, he then did an event with Jasmine Crockett and now is up on television saying he spoke to Tallarico and Tallarico refused to apologize.
We spoke on the phone and I offered him a chance to apologize and he declined to do that.
So he didn't apologize?
That's right.
Did that surprise you?
It is surprising. I think that's the easiest thing to do in this situation is to say, listen, whatever, you can even say, I feel like that's not how the conversation went. But either way, I apologize for the offense that was given, which I think is what would have been the right thing to do.
So for all the conversation about Crockett's team not being put together and possibly not being led by anyone, it sure seems like they're firing pretty directly at Tallarico. Now, so much so that if there were any leadership in the Democratic Party, they would be doing their best to try to calm this down. Somebody would be making phone calls to the Crockett camp and saying, for the love of God, run against him as you being more progressive, run against him as him being scared of Trump. But can we please not just entirely irradiate this guy with black voters for the rest of his career? We might actually need for him to win a race at some point, somewhere. That has not been the case. Indeed, it is a full racial assault on Tallarico. And I gotta say, he's not handling it pretty well. For somebody that was with that influencer, even what he admitted was a little free talking about mediocre campaigns. His is not one that I would describe as sterling. I made fun of his initial debut ad because for somebody that is supposed to be able to trade on his authenticity, it was staged. The initial ad was a person cinematically walking into a Texas bar in some kind of drag district, the kinds that you'd find either in Austin on, let's say, South Congress, all throughout Houston, Dallas, or maybe even some of the small towns. Single story, just a simple bar. And as this woman walks in, she sees James Tallarico surrounded by various members of the Texas community that all represent one demographic. or another. And James Tallarico's giving his stump speech, and then everybody claps at the end. I didn't like this. I didn't like it because why don't you just record him actually talking to people? Why do you need to make it cinematic? And if you're going to make it cinematic, I don't know, have him doing cool stuff. Why are you going to gussy up a moment where you should be able to just watch him talk to people and see them get a good reaction? And if you don't believe that he can do that, then why are you putting him on camera talking at all? You should have the voters talking about, I do like this and I don't like that, and this is what I need and this is what I don't need. And so that way the voter can at least see themselves speaking out, and then James Tallarico coming up at the end and saying, and that's why I'm running. You see, I always knew that, just give a window into this man's soul. Well, James Tallarico came out with another ad. Here that is. It's up on television now.
Billionaires don't just influence politicians, they own them. That's why I don't take corporate PAC money. It's why I fought to cap campaign contributions. In the Senate, I'll ban billionaires from making unlimited secret donations. I'll stop members of Congress from trading stocks, and I'll raise taxes on those at the top to fund tax cuts for the rest of us. I'm James Tallarico, and I approve this message because our government should work for all of us, not just billionaires.
Well, the talking points have gotten a little bit more progressive. He's now talking about banning stocks and having the rich pay their fair share so you can fund tax cuts for those lessers. But it's the same ad. The same ad I didn't like. In fact, the only thing that's different about this ad is that in this ad, we have apparently gone forward in time. And the ad that I hated is so popular that it's being listened to on radio and watched on televisions, phones, and tablets by various different people around Texas. I don't know why the Tallarico campaign believes that having a man of the cloth running for election means he has to have a Messiah complex, that he has to be preaching to people and then have people clap. Now, it's been a while since I have been to service. I will admit that. But at least when I did go in my youth, I don't remember at the end everybody getting up and applauding. Now, I don't want to compare one for one. But if you look at Georgia, which is more of a purple state, but it has a Republican lean in terms of voter registration. And I would say that when you have competent candidates in Georgia from the Republican Party that aren't trying to knife each other, or there's not active voter suppression by the President of the United States, usually the Republicans win. But that has bred pretty good candidates. Raphael Warnock ran 4 years ago against Herschel Walker. And in those ads, Raphael Warnock was straight to camera doing kind of goofy ads that never mentioned what party he was in. If you're gonna tack to the center, then just do that. Be somebody that you like. Be somebody that you want to spend time with. Connect to people on an emotional level. And I think what we're seeing now with James Tallarico is that there's a veil there. Dare I say he's kind of a on paper candidate. And at least in the most recent polling, that does bear out. A University of Houston poll taken from January 20th to the 31st has Jasmine Crockett up 9 on Tallarico. That is pretty crazy when you also factor in that she's been outspent on television. In fact, what it means to me is that Tallarico isn't really connecting. And if Jasmine Crockett makes it to the general election, well, it might matter a little bit less who gets the Republican nomination. It might be the way that you get to Senator Ken Paxton. There's been some very interesting primary polling on that. Chris LaCivita, who ran Donald Trump's 2024 campaign along with Susie Wiles, he is working along. He's got a bunch of different races this cycle, but Cornyn is his guy here. And he says that, in a memo at the end of last week, that Cornyn still is in the best position. That Cornyn is leading right now. He is the candidate that would go to a runoff with Ken Paxton. And if he goes to a runoff with Ken Paxton with Wesley Hunt out of the race, then he is definitely going to win. That's not what this Houston survey says, at least in terms of Cornyn leading now. It has Ken Paxton up by 7. And then the question would be where that 17% from Wesley Hunt would go. Interesting stuff. If it is John Cornyn versus Jasmine Crockett, I don't think that the Republicans need to spend a lot of money. If Ken Paxton gets on the ticket, the Republicans are going to have to spend cash. And right now, and this is what I've been told from inside Congress, there is going to be not a penny unspent this cycle. They understand that they are under attack from all sides. They're going to have a congressional ballot deficit, a generic ballot deficit. It looks like Donald Trump will still be in the 40s, maybe in the 30s by the time that election day rolls around. So everybody's battening down the hatches. Does that mean that the Texas Senate flips? If it does, oh my word, we will be in a wave watch, the likes of which we haven't seen in a minute. This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. It's where you go if you want to support the show. You get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. That is TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Depending on when you listen to this, we are about 2 days away from a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, and Democrats have rejected a White House counteroffer, saying that it's lacked details and legislative text. It also fails to address concerns about ICE conduct. Senate GOP leaders, led by John Thune, are pushing for a short-term funding patch while signaling optimism to win Democratic support. Democrats say progress and real negotiation, especially guardrails on ICE, are required. Internal GOP pressure from MAGA aligned senators have also complicated talks, with some opposing even a temporary extension. Thune plans a procedural step today with discussions around a 4 to 6 week continuing resolution as travel and recess deadlines loom. So the best thing, if you would like to not see a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, is that we are about to get to a moment where a lot of folks in Congress want to be the hell out of DC. There's a recess coming up. They have international trips. Oh boy. Congress loves a CODL trip. And they want this to be done by Friday if possible. But the Democrats are not budging because, again, they understand that they're going to get blistered by their base no matter what deal they make. Something that is happening that we are not commenting on because it is happening after we record. We're doing this in the morning on Tuesday is the hearing. The ICE hearing in the House. If that gets spicy, it could complicate things even further. My expectation is that we are going to see a Department of Homeland Security shutdown. The thing is that the Department of Homeland Security is massive. In the post 9/11 reorg, a lot of different things that are not just ICE have gone into the Department of Homeland Security. So we'll see. I know that Republicans have kind of dug in their heels on this. They don't believe that they should be pushed around by Democrats for something that is a core issue for them. The Trump White House obviously reacted to the Alex Preddy murder, and so they are adjusting accordingly. Where will this land? Who knows? Like so many things in this administration, there's never a dull moment. Speaking of that, Epstein. Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are pressing the Department of Justice over redactions in the newly released Jeffrey Epstein files that conceal the identities of 6 men. The lawmakers argued the omissions may exceed what the disclosure law allows and said that they could publicly reveal the names from the House floor if the DOJ does not reverse course. Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland echoed concern, citing redactions of non-victims, including Les Wexner. Raskin also flagged a redacted note referencing Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago. This all comes after the DOJ invited members of Congress to the Department of Justice so they could view the unredacted documents and they could see the names that were not released publicly. There has been some pushback by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Thomas Massie over Twitter. Blanche believes that Massie is grandstanding. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I have seen enough to change my priors, which are beginning to harden on this. And that is, the most interesting things about Jeffrey Epstein are not in files that the Department of Justice has. The most interesting stuff about Jeffrey Epstein, in my opinion, are in files that the Central Intelligence Agency has. Because it is my belief that Jeffrey Epstein, along with his work at Bear Stearns and based on the people that he was close with through the years, was probably a person who made things happen amongst nations and intelligence organizations. What does that mean? Well, let's say you need to get weapons to Iran so you can fund Contras in Central America. You know, before that whole thing became a scandal, then you would engage in people and banks that didn't have certain oversight to make sure that that happened. The money men in these deals, especially when they need to stay off the books of any legitimate government, are incredibly important. And the way that these guys operate is just by knowing everybody. How do you know everybody? Well, you make them happy. You have parties. Sometimes those parties have girls. And sometimes the people throwing the parties or the girls at the parties might not be what you would consider in your local jurisdiction to be of age. Now, does that mean that Jeffrey Epstein is a nice or a good guy? No, I think he's a pretty round creep. And he was convicted of sex trafficking between Ghislaine Maxwell and himself. But I'm starting to less and less believe that he was either working directly for an intelligence operation, recording compromising material on them to blackmail them to do things that he wanted, and is probably more somebody that, you know, just had people partying. Now, what does that mean for some of the names that Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie want out there? Well, you're talking about Les Wexner. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of that stuff is out there. I'm glad it's all out there, to be honest. I don't think that anybody's handling it particularly well. I think there's a lot of people that are just getting dunked on because they emailed Jeffrey Epstein or they made a joke to Jeffrey Epstein. We have no idea if anybody who communicated with Jeffrey Epstein has done anything illegal in their lives, let alone something as horrific as sexually assaulting children. And yet that kind of stuff is thrown out all the time. Hell, we have no idea if people who partied with Jeffrey Epstein all the time did that. I don't know. It's interesting, but the beat goes on. I'm glad that we're at this point with the Epstein stuff and not just kind of talking about it to talk about it. Finally, Susan Collins has officially announced that she will seek re-election to the U.S. Senate for a 6th term in Maine. She is one of the most flippable seats, as she is once every 6 years. And yet she's had some decent polling come out for her. She is going to run against either Janet Mills or Graham Plattner. Plenty to run against with both of them. Janet Mills has said positive things about Susan Collins. Susan Collins will not have the albatross of Trump around her neck because she has been oppositional to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said many mean things about Susan Collins. So she'll be able to run as a check on Trump for Mainers. Will she be enough of one? We'll see. And that is your update. Again, takepoliticsseriously.com, where you need to go if you would like to support this show. And now, Mr. Tom Merritt. I don't think this is going to be the last conversation that we have on this topic. In fact, I'll guarantee it. But I do want to be able to go back to some touchstone to talk about what we think we are going to be talking about over the next 5 years when it comes to AI and politics. And so we welcome our dear friend, Tom Merritt, back to the show. Daily Tech News Show host. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
All right. AI and politics. It's unformed. We don't have battle lines, hardened battle lines drawn. But what I've noticed over the past few months and then weeks, kind of more frequently, is you see a lot of just kind of fishing lines into the pool. Everybody kind of knows they need to have an opinion on AI. Nobody feels super sure about exactly how they are going to push into it. What is your general take? And then we'll get into some of the specifics that have popped up over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I'm curious to get your sense of where those battle lines are shimmering out there, because from where I sit, the technology is steaming full speed ahead, and the controversies from the technology news side of things are these investments being done wisely? There's a lot of people crying bubble and circular financing and all of that sort of thing. I don't think too many people who are serious about the topic don't believe that the capacity needs to be increased, but they wonder, are we being too aggressive about it? Are we financing it the right way? Are the expenditures too high? And so you've seen a lot of in the financial tech world, nervousness and sell-offs about, all of the debt that the big companies are taking on. You had big quarterly reports or earnings reports from major companies, including Microsoft and Amazon, and yet there were big sell-offs to those stocks, and in other times where they wouldn't normally, based on what money they brought in, because they are investing so heavily into AI data centers. But then the next day, the public doesn't buy they saw buying opportunities in these stocks, and they sent the stocks even higher. Yeah, Google's a great example of that. It blew estimates out of the water with its revenue, and its revenue is from advertising, and everybody's worried about that. But the only headline out of the earnings was Google announces a huge amount of debt, a huge amount of money that it's going to borrow. So there's that side of it. And then on the user side of it, there's just a lot of speculation, and it ranges. There's some optimists out there. I don't want to leave them out, but I don't hear from them as often as I hear from the skeptics and the outright opposition to AI. So there's definitely people who are like, I don't know that this is as good as everyone's telling me it's going to be. I've tried it. It's good for this. It's not good for that. There's the people who are like, I'm just tired of hearing about it. And then there's the people who are like, I was enjoying the Super Bowl until I saw those AI ads and now it's ruined my day kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of just knee-jerk response to that among the technology enthusiasts and not just the general populace, which also I think is like that.
I think you are wise to point out a few different elements. There's one, a fear from financial minded folks that AI investment is going to take down the stock market and therefore the economy. And then there is a cultural rejection of AI as some kind of removal of humanity from life's equation, right? So one of them is a bet in the way that like The Big Short was like a bet of like, I think that this is bad. I want to be on the record saying that I think this is not great. And I for one will be investing in things that will outlive this, or I'm going to out and out short these stocks because I think that this is a mass hysteria from the financial and tech press. They see that there is a gold rush and they are overcommitting to it. And then there is just that cultural side. I'm going to add another vector to that. And that is just out and out populism vis-a-vis the economy and the big A, affordability. The idea that these data centers that are being built out, and one of the things that you're going to see in the AI world over the next 12 months is that a lot of these data centers that started being built, a year ago, 2 years ago, they're all coming online like this year, which means you're going to see a lot more compute, which means you're going to see a lot more power usage. And that is a big thing that Ron DeSantis in Florida came out and said that Florida is going to be restrictive of data centers because data centers are not good environmentally. They are not good for power usage, but it makes your life more costly to have a data center on your power grid because you are going to see a consequence from serving AI throughout the rest of the world. Even if it's to your own home, you're going to see a consequence to it. And that, I think, is something that is a very big trigger, especially now as we have economic anxiety. You've seen some polls that have begun to say that people are feeling a little bit more optimistic that by the end of this year, they're going to be doing better than they were at the beginning of this year. But in general, anxiety is high with affordability. Things cost a lot. Power bills over the last year spiked. Now, there's not a lot of evidence to say that that was because of data centers, but it's hard to ignore big expenditures. Data centers are being built. My power bill is higher. Those things can be linked together narratively. And I do think that you're seeing some political consequence, or at least you're seeing politicians that are beginning to say, this is my lane, not in my backyard for this data center.
And I wonder who can take best advantage of that? Because I think you're right. There's definitely the knee-jerk reaction of my power price went up. It probably was not because a data center got built, because I don't see any data centers within thousands of miles of me, but I don't care because I read on the internet every day that data centers are driving up the power. So I'm assuming somehow that's the reason, whether it is or not. And it can go both ways. In reality, a data center mismanaged can definitely drive up the price of electricity because it needs interconnects and it needs new infrastructure, and the electric company could pass that along to the consumer. we have companies already saying they're going to try to make sure that doesn't happen. Microsoft in January put out a policy plan that said they will pay their own way. They will pay for all the infrastructure that's needed, et cetera. But it could do that, and it has done that in a couple of cases. But also, if it's done right, and if companies are responsible and they do pay their own way, like happened in North Dakota, you actually see the price go down for electric power delivery because you have a more efficient system. There's some upgrades that are made, and the utilities can sort of skirt along and say, yeah, Microsoft, you pay for all this. By the way, we're going to fix some stuff that needed to be fixed for a long time as part of this.
And it's funny that you mentioned North Dakota, because the current Secretary of the Interior, I believe, is the former governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum. Somebody that I believe that if you look back into history of all the big flashy conversations that we have had about Donald Trump, his 47th term and what his cabinet has done. And boy, howdy, if we had a lot of conversations about Kristi Noem and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth. We haven't talked a lot about Doug Burgum, and yet I believe that in history, we will look back on his term as very consequential, because one of the biggest things that they have done almost entirely under the radar is given approval and changed some of our nation's laws in terms of how much on-premises power generation you can do for these data centers. By the end of this term, we're going to see an explosion of nuclear power that we have not seen in America in
Don't
years.
say explosion of nuclear power, Justin. Come on.
A tremendous expansion of nuclear power. You're right. And that's going to be almost entirely because of this data center build out. And that's going to be almost entirely because Doug Burgum, who's very friendly with this industry, he was a tech guy who brought tech to North Dakota, sold a company to Microsoft before he became governor. He is an accelerationist when it comes to this. I don't know how it's going to play out. I know I've talked to people in Congress that are wary. They don't know where to go. They obviously know that there's going to be a lot of lobbying money and time and effort that's going to be spent by every major tech company to be as friendly as possible to building these things. But they're also terrified that they're going to get caught in the same way that Republicans got caught and Democrats got caught in the outsourcing boom of the 90s, that they're going to be on the wrong side of a NAFTA style thing that's going to eventually end their careers as the more populist wave comes in. The only difference is that the populist wave is here today. It's not going to be championed by an outsider politician. The politician that has banged the gong on this is currently the president of the United States, and they are beholden to that specific, the Democrats want to get that coalition back, and the Republicans currently have it. At least they did in 2024. We'll see where it goes from here. But I think we're going to see some really bold statements by the time that the midterms roll around. And you're going to see some people take some positions that are strident, both for or against. Like they're going to either find the edge cases that the AI companies are talking about, saying, look at this cancer that's being cured, or look at all these people that now have the best doctor they could possibly have, and it's in their pocket in a way that you couldn't before. Or you're going to see the knowledge work class saying, look at all these people that can't find jobs. They can't find jobs because they were replaced by a computer. And look at all these people that have a higher electricity bill. They're doing it because they're serving inference to people that, are I don't know, whatever, not sympathetic.
Yeah. I don't see politicians being able to win on the pro AI argument this cycle. Do you?
Yeah.
It seems like you have to pick an opposition. Even if you're somewhat pro, it has to be, well, I think there's a lot of good can be done, but ... Everything
is fun and games until you take away the thing that people like.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that, there was a lot made about the VC dividend, that the millennial dividend, they called it, that like ordering out on Uber Eats and DoorDash every night was cheap when VCs were willing to subsidize that transaction with a lot of money. And then eventually the bill had to come due. The wages for the drivers were lower. The expenses for the consumer were higher. And now we are hitting more of an inflection point of exactly how much can I afford this? Right now, the VC dividend is in AI. It is in these companies. It is in trying to build market share. And you saw OpenAI roll out ads this week because for the free tier, they need to find a way to subsidize this, or else they're going to have to cut down the amount of times that you can use the service, because every time you use it, it costs money. When you have 90% of current students in all levels of school that say that they use AI every single day, that they use chatbots every single day. If you say, hey, look, we can build these things slower, you get 5 questions every day. Do you think the pressure is going to be on the AI companies, or is it going to be on their ability to build a data center that nobody's ever going to see and you're never, I don't know. I do think that there's a positive AI case to be made if the services are popular.
But does it get you elected? Is it enough this cycle, right? And I think as compute expands and these tools get more capable and we learn how not to use them, and versus, just thinking they're good at everything, that argument starts to get easier to make and more compelling to make, because it grows from the young voters up into the other demographics. But this cycle around, I don't get the sense that there's a lot of people out there, even those using it all the time. There's a lot of hypocrites out there, Justin, who are like, yeah, of course I use it every day, but I hate it. It's awful. And it should stop. Yeah.
God, it is just the internet all over again.
Yeah. And I think I've been wondering.
I mean, it's really just computers. Go ahead.
I've been wondering how they're going to divvy up the opposition, right? Because we're seeing a realignment of the parties anyway. It's fun to hear Florida saying we need to stop these data centers because of the environment.
I know, Florida sounding like the EU. There's no EU in Florida.
You can't spell EU with Florida. There's just nothing there for you.
No.
Yeah. It's not FLEURIDA. So I've been curious to see. I've been assuming that both parties are going to take an oppositional stance, and we're seeing a lot of bipartisanship in these laws that pertain to AI. But when it comes to the campaign stuff, maybe it ends up not being much of an issue because everybody's against it. But I suspect that there'll be some dividing lines of
Actually, no, you want to know what it is? It's what it always is.
Yeah.
Jobs. How do you defend coal? You defend coal in West Virginia by saying hardworking West Virginians provide the energy that you need to run your life. That's how you defend coal. If you just say coal's great, you see that gigantic black smokestack? That's amazing. It's awesome. You don't sell it that way.
Do you like your light bulbs? Well, then suck down that smoke, folks, because that's how you do it. Yeah.
No, you say.
But AI is the destroyer of jobs. It's perceived to be. Yeah.
Yes. And that's where the onus is going to be on not only the companies that provide the APIs and provide the services, but everybody who's building a business is like, okay, so you're able to do more with less. Does that still mean that you're hiring? Does it still mean that you are bringing people in? And that's where we're at. So the argument would be, all right, if this is at a crazy inflection point, are we just at the low end? Are we at the low end where it looks like, oh yeah, no, we want to attack the data centers because they're, you could see all larger electricity costs and also just screw AI. Am I right, guys?
Yeah, right.
Or are you just going to see because this tech gets built so fast, some massive hiring boom where now everybody owes their paycheck to token usage for one of the major AI players. And you're like, no, don't restrict the tokens. If the tokens stop flowing, then so do the paychecks.
I mean, there's a lot of ifs in there. I mean, if that happened, yeah, you could ride that wave. I'm not sure this round that's going to
happen between now and November. That would be the question. And now also you would say if that is the case, all right, so let's play out some scenarios.
Sure.
If that's the case, this is the AI golden era scenario, then it would benefit the Republicans. And Republicans would be kind of basically like we're back to the 90s. Now Republicans are pro-business. We are America leading the world. Yes, we have a transfer of some jobs, but you want to know what jobs aren't? Blue collar jobs. Blue collar jobs are still, we're the party of the working class, and also everybody who is in knowledge work, you just need to learn to prompt. Other than that, there's going to be some folks that used to bring abacuses to work. Guess what, Grandpa? Now you got a new way to do it, blah, 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 blah. That would benefit the Republicans. Democrats would probably be in a bit of a disadvantage, if even just because the Republicans would be able to say, look, panicins be damned. We brought the economy back.
Yeah. I think they might be able to make we held these companies' feet to the fire to make sure they did this responsibly, whereas the Democrats would have just torn it all down and you wouldn't have got any benefit from it, kind of thing.
I'm listening to this podcast, The Last Invention, which I think in a lot of ways is very interesting and in some ways is pretty frustrating. But one of the things that was a little frustrating was they talked about two different times that Sam Altman went before Congress. And at one time, he was very forward on like, hey, I think that we should have legislation federally. And then the next time he was like, legislation, it can oftentimes do more harm than good. And we're not closed to it, but we really want to know what the language is on it. And they didn't point out that he did these under two different administrations. One administration that was very much a pro-regulation one, and one of which that was kind of an anti-regulation one, that was a pro-business one. And so it's like the argument is that Sam Altman just kind of knows where the wind is blowing and didn't want any kind of adversarial relationship with either administration. But let's do the flat scenario. Let's say that the economy is basically where it is right now. Let's trend it even up a little bit, but not all that much. Inflation's still, we're not in a deflationary cycle where things are going backwards to prices that happened before the gigantic spike in 2021 and 22. Where do you think the AI issue is in that scenario by the midterms?
That's the one I'm struggling with, because I see everybody from both parties testing the same arguments. Yes. These companies are irresponsible. They are using your intellectual property to profit. They're driving up your electrical costs. They're using your water, and they're taking your jobs. And I wonder if the taking your jobs thing does end up even this year being more of a Democrat position, because it does affect white collar more. Yeah. And certainly the water use would lean towards the Democrat side, because it is the more easily solvable part of the data center issue. If you just construct new data centers to be, zero waste and reuse water, you can tap that down pretty fast. But it's a good issue to get environmentalists on your side. Whereas the Republicans may be more about the abuse of intellectual property and the fact that they are disrupting your community by placing them in the wrong places, driving up your prices with electricity, that side of it. That's my best guess about how they divvy it up, but I don't see it divvying it up right now.
I believe that we are going to see a full frontal assault from environmental groups on data centers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's going to be their biggest push since fracking. And you will I've seen videos that are almost identical to the videos that went viral during the fracking boom, except then it was lighting water on fire. Now it is like, oh, a guy's well, he doesn't have water in his well anymore. And a data center got built 3 miles away. Like the data center is drinking his water. Both of those claims have specious scientific ties, but they are strong narrative pulls. And I would suspect that that will be the case now. The larger question when it comes to that is, how well funded are environmental groups in 2026 compared to 2010, 2011, when that fracking boom was happening and you saw a big opposition to it?
Yeah, and maybe that points the way to one way this breaks down, which is Democrats saying we are the resistance to the big tech companies, and Republicans saying we're the only ones that can get them to play ball. We are the only ones who can hold their feet to the fire and make them do this responsibly, and get you the benefits without the negatives.
All right, now let's say the worst case scenario. Let's say that the circular financing people are absolutely right. All of a sudden, massive issues for Google and Amazon, the pillar,
bubble scraps everywhere as it
the
bursts.
FANG companies, just a huge market crap out, a huge crater in the economy. We are in a desperate scenario. In that case, I think the Democrats are going to benefit from a lot of different things, up to and including Trump ruined the economy, whether or not it has to do with the data center investment. And I don't think that it would necessarily happen before the midterms, even if you are going to look at that. Like, if you believe OpenAI, what OpenAI says is that like their revenue has tracked almost identically to compute. And so it's like more compute would equal more money, at least in the short term. Now, whether or not we find a ceiling to that, that would be the question. I don't think that's going to happen by November. But if it does, it's a bonanza for the Democrats. And now the Democrats have their issue of not only did the Republicans ruin the economy with tariffs, but they also let these AI companies run wild. Nobody put there was no guard for the public interest. You need to put the Democrats back in charge to make sure that these companies are acting responsibly. Yeah,
I think at that point, it becomes an economic issue, not an AI issue. The AI issues just kind of get flooded by, this is the administration that ruined the economy argument. You don't need to be making the anti-AI case at that point, not as strongly. One point when we were talking here that I realized we haven't talked about is the foreign adversary element. That could be a weapon in the Republican war chest to say, yes, this is a controversial subject and we need to hold these companies' feet to the fire, but China will win if we don't help them.
Or is it because Trump allowed the export of certain NVIDIA chips? We're going to get really under the hood here, guys. So apologies if you are not into this kind of stuff technically, but this is...
Right, and not just the disabled ones, but the previous generation, not the current generation,
but the
previous generation of NVIDIA's top chips, which are still being sold around the world to other companies as well.
And the argument for selling them directly to China is that China's getting them anyway. You might as well know at what order they are getting them, and there's no sense in trying to fence them through a third parties. But yeah, that's something that Democrats have not been on board with because they're not on board with anything that Donald Trump does. There's no Democrat that's like, yes, loosen the export controls for NVIDIA. They are skeptical of that. And so that can be a wedge issue for them to be China hawky, to say like, no, you're allowing us to lose this AI war by keeping China competitive.
Yeah. The administration could easily spin that back in their own direction, though, without changing a policy, right? They're good at that.
Well, this is the problem with the Trump administration, is that all the lines are currently blurred as everybody figures out, all right, was the 24 coalition real? Like, you've seen some polling to suggest that it's not that Latinos are snapping back, that young voters are snapping back. So
listen, I don't want to call out my barber, but his tone has changed. I have a Hispanic barber, and his tone in 24 is different than his tone now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the Latino vote's fascinating because also that then snapped back toward Trump when he took out Maduro. But who knows? Who knows by the time the midterms roll around? Who knows if it's in the areas that are going to matter electorally?
Yeah. Also,
so
my barber's a Chiefs fan, so he is depressed for other reasons.
Is that part of why his tone was different in 24?
Probably more to do with it than anything. Yeah.
But nobody knows whether or not the coalitions are real. And so therefore nobody wants to go all in on stuff. You know, you have the only people that are going all in were people that were going all in on stuff before. And that's what I wonder if this midterms is really just a lot of people getting things on the record so they can, in a year, in 2 years, in 2028, say, I've been saying this since blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
One of those guys, Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang was talking about AI. He was talking about the great transformation of the American economy a few years ago. Now, whether or not you think that Andrew Yang's a smart guy or whether or not you think that UBI is an answer to where things are going, right now, he can go out on Twitter and say, just like I predicted, blank, 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 and blank. And if you don't think that matters, I want to introduce you to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was somebody that was laughed at in DC for decades until his policies became something that people wanted to pay more attention to. And then he had the one thing that nobody else in that town had, authenticity, because he had been saying the same thing over and over and over again. So even when he changed positions on certain things like guns and immigration, it didn't matter because he was the true blue progressive who believed that the millionaires and the billionaires are taking away from you, the working class person. Like, that's some stuff that he was laughed at because he was too far on the fringe. And now he's dead in closer to the center than he's ever been. So I wonder whether or not that's part of the reason, is that everybody wants to say something, but not as loud as they possibly could say it, just in case they can build a narrative going forward.
Yeah, I actually wonder if, again, I come back to what I said earlier, if the AI topic doesn't play a huge part in the midterms, just because everybody's kind of in agreement, not in agreement principally, but in agreement on what the rhetoric should be to the populace. So it's not an issue that wins you any points. But an important one to talk about for the reason that you're mentioning, which is to get yourself down on record.
Can we talk about the one thing that isn't in conversation that I kind of thought, if you would have just followed this from the Silicon Valley perspective, you would have thought would have been one of them, because it is the juiciest, which is the AI doomer, it's going to kill us all, the same argument that partially ousted Sam Altman briefly from OpenAI. That misalignment is going to kill us, that Skynet is going to be created, because you haven't heard that has not made it into mainstream politics.
And I don't think it will. It's a very inside the valley kind of perspective because it is still theoretical. And those who take it seriously probably bristle when I say it's theoretical, but I don't mean theoretical and it won't happen. I mean theoretical in that it is not happening at the moment. And your mainstream voter goes, man, I asked ChatGPT something and it hallucinated an answer that wasn't true. I don't think this thing is going to become Skynet anytime soon. So, and when they start to get really good, when all that compute comes online and the tuning starts to get better and they start to get scary good, maybe that takes off, and maybe that happens by November. I don't know. But at the moment, I think more people are frustrated with the fact that Siri keeps sending them to the web. And they're like, really? These things are going to take over the world? I don't think so.
You kind of also haven't quite seen, although this would be another lane, is the same thing that happened with social media. Social media eventually became unpopular with Washington, D.C. because of downstream harm to the populace and especially these kids. You've seen a little bit of that in the New York Times. The New York Times runs apparently the same story every 3 months about the people that have mentally disturbed people that have had interactions with ChatGPT that have gotten into days-long conversations with these chatbots and then eventually either killed themselves or did something horrifying to end their lives or somebody else's. Like, but that would be the other thing. The other thing is that it's driving people insane. Because that eventually came for Facebook. It eventually came for Instagram. It eventually came for TikTok.
When there's an incident that happens, it usually causes that turn. And those are impossible to predict. So if there is something that happens and everyone attributes it to, it's because they were using that LLM chatbot, that I don't know that that's so much the doomer scenario, but it certainly puts more people into these are dangerous kind of lane. Yeah.
That feels more Mr. Altman, are you aware? Blah, 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 blah. Like that's what it feels like more to me. It feels more like a mainstream.
Would you put a loaded gun into the hand of every one of your users?
Exactly. Yeah. That the AI psychosis thing or the LLM psychosis thing seems like it kind of came and went. Like that one didn't stick, at least right now.
Oh, where the LLM is losing its mind and
no, that it's driving people.
That it's driving people. Yeah.
The people are getting LLM psychosis that they're
closing down Open or a 4.0. So OpenAI's 4.0 model. So.
I mean, some people love it. You know, obviously, I'm in.
Crazy is attractive sometimes, Justin.
We produce the OpenAI podcast, but. Like when you get into those comment sections, people, it's 4.0, dude. People are like, keep 4.0 forever. I need 4.0. Like it is one of those popular things that like, I don't know. There's all these things that I do think we're going to see going forward. Like I'll put it that way. All right, do we go down the road where now a fringe position, a culture war position, in the same way that somebody says I root for the White Sox and not the Cubs, is like keep 4.0 forever? Yeah. Because like that's in play too.
Yeah. It's not impossible. It makes me turn my attention to Maltbook and OpenClaw. I'm not sure how much of the audience is aware, but OpenClaw is an open source way to manage the chatbots. The chatbots are still OpenAI's and Anthropic's and everybody else's, but you can run the agent yourself and configure it. And man, that has got some devotees and a lot of people pointing out and finding the security vulnerabilities and patching them. There could be something happen there that causes everyone to say this stuff is dangerous. But Maltbook is even weirder because that's people who run OpenClaw having their agents go and post on a social network that is only meant for agents to talk to each other.
And might well be pretty fake.
It has a lot. You can get into the API and be a human to post on there.
Be a human. Yeah. Saying, hello, how do you do, fellow robots? I'm here. And then take a screen grab of it and go viral on Twitter with, Kevin Roos, who, tried to cheat on his wife with ChatGPT 4. But like, that's there's a lot of stuff that's happening. And I don't know how much or what bubbles out to the broader political world.
I think that's kind of where my head's at after having this conversation with you is the thing that will draw the political lines is something that hasn't happened yet. That will happen between now and November.
Because something like like OpenClaw, which you might have heard of it as what was the...
It was Claudebot.
Claudebot, then Molt, and then OpenClaw.
Yeah.
As apparently the guy who founded this thing or started this thing is, I guess he got a nasty legal letter from Anthropic. And so now OpenAI is his best friend. And so OpenClaw, so Open AI and Claw, like there's stuff there, but that feels from a technology story more like a Linux like build your own PC kind of thing, which is like very exciting to the people that have built every piece of technology that consumers have enjoyed for the last, 70 years. But I don't know whether or not that breaks it out wider. Now, all of a sudden, if there's a
security vulnerability that causes damage,
that gets really screwed up.
Yeah.
And for just to wrap around, for some people aren't totally, if you're not technologically inclined, essentially what OpenClaw is a open source framework. And when you often hear people buying Mac minis or a cheap computer that you can just leave it running on, as it uses chatbots to operate everything that you can that you would authorize locally on your computer to have it have access to, which is everything, right? Like you open your own bank account on your computer. What if a agent is doing it on that? You can do it on remote servers, but that is like, they're doing these meetups where they need overflow rooms. Like you would not be shocked if there was a meetup for one of these things in like a small venue or stadium or something like that, with the kind of enthusiasm that you have right now in Silicon Valley because this tech is so present. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's preference, it's model preference. Maybe it's somebody coming out and being like, I'm for Anthropic, I'm not for OpenAI. These are the divisions that are happening in tech.
I put a 54% chance on Claude being the Democrat chatbot, but I'm not sure which one the Republicans glom onto yet. Probably XAI, but maybe not.
I've noticed some cultural things with that. Like Claude is kind of like the hipster, like the hipster chatbot, and ChatGPT it's the Coke, it's the runaway favorite, but for every favorite you need a challenger, and Anthropic is kind of the challenger, but then again, like most people are using it with Google, like, and then meanwhile Apple's kind of abdicated in this race. They don't have their own version of it. They're going to have Siri powered by Gemini. There's a lot. Anyway, that's the kind of conversation that you're going to get on Daily Tech News Show every day as these things evolve. We will meet here in the middle at the intersection of politics and technology every once in a while. Tom, where can people find all of your work?
Thank you, Steve Gerbs. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about Mike McCarthy, but I'm sure Justin will mention it at some point in the future. However, Daily Tech News Show is available at
Why are you going to do that to me? Why are you going to make me talk about Mike McCarthy?
Daily Tech News Show is found at dailytechnewsshow.com. Every day in 30 minutes or less, we break down all the important news of the day to help you understand it. So if you've been listening to this saying like, wow, how do I wrap my head around all that stuff? That's what we do. Come on over. We'll explain it to you, give you the context, and make you smarter. Join us, dailytechnewsshow.com.
Nobody has done it better, and nobody does it better currently than the one and only Tom Merritt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, man.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. We are produced by Mr. Will Saddleberg. A thank you to Tom Merritt for joining us today. You can send me an email, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of the show on TikTok, Justin R. Young, Instagram, Justin R. Young, Twitter, Justin R. Young, and on YouTube, you can get us at Politics. Also on Substack TV. If you are signed up to us on Substack TV, you can just scan your subscriptions and boom, right there. You download an app on your television, you watch me on your television. None of the other YouTube clutter. Because it's not constantly trying to recommend you stuff. It's just a cozy place to watch the video content, which I think is an interesting idea. If you want to hit us off with a one-time donation, it is paypal.me/payjury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. The only place you get our bonus content is TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. That is $12 a month. It is on TakePoliticsSeriously.com. But if you want to lock in from now through the midterms into 2028 candidate announcements, you can do it right now. Set it and forget it for a cheaper price than you'll get anywhere else. $99 for one whole year, over 150 episodes of this show for under $100. But it is only on the foundational tier that you get your name read on each and every free episode, including Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Nick, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, Neil, Casey, oh yeah, it's Adam, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Michael, Matt, TP4 Bongo, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Paul, Gloria Young, my mother, a dog named Checkers, Jerry Trucker, John Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Doc. You want your name on the show as well? One place to do it, takepoliticsseriously.com. We're talking UK on Friday's show. Stella's back talking about the future of Keir Starmer, whether or not he will survive as prime minister. Stella has worked in labor politics, and it's an interesting comparison how Epstein mania is running wild in the UK compared to how it's happening in the United States. Would Howard Lutnick survive if he were his UK counterpart? I don't know. We'll talk to Stella about it. But that's Friday. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss. Oh, 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.
After credit scene, Tom, does Keir Starmer survive?
Not for another 3 years. There's going to be another election, and he will lose. But how long he can hold out before he has to call it?
You think he's going to call it? He's not going to get replaced by
He's going to have to
labor?
call it. I don't think he'll get replaced because there just isn't a good alternative right now. Now, if a good alternative arises, perhaps, but he's going to get the pressure to have to call it before long.
I mean, he's going to call. I mean, doesn't the polling say that means reform? Like that this is the reform election?
Yeah, it is a nobody wins scenario for Sir Keir. And his only saving grace is that there isn't a clear alternative. I mean, they're talking about Ed Miliband again being a potential alternative. Keir's fine. He doesn't have to look behind him much, but he's got nowhere to go in front of him.
They've banned knives in the Labor Party, so people will just he'll feel the gentle poke of sporks and be like, "Oh no."
Yeah, but he's gonna have the public pressure to call the election is going to be intense, and I don't know how that all plays out because Nigel Farage becomes the prime minister if they called it today, I think.
Wow.